Hello, Fight or Flight viewers. My name is Nathan from Season 3 and Season 4 of Fight or Flight, and we have a great one here today because I'm joined by, from Destination X, as well as Fight or Flight's second mini and the winner of Fight or Flight's third mini. It's Ty. Ty, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming to chat with me. You played a really, really great game. You only caught one stray vote. That was a throwaway vote in the middle of the game. Otherwise, it was a clean run through. How do you feel a few weeks out here? You played such a great game, a student of the game that you said yourself. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. It was really, playing it was really fun. And what I can say is that it's harder than it looks. You would think maybe playing like an online game won't be as intense as playing in person. Oh, it was definitely the same level of intensity. So I'm feeling great. I'm really proud of myself that, it was my second time playing and I was able to bring home the win.
Hey, well, awesome. Well, before we get into it, I'm curious, what's up with you? What else is going on with you besides Fight or Flight? I know that you've been doing a lot of different things, so just tell the viewers, what can we know about yourself right now?
Okay, well, I am back to practicing law. So I work at a law firm in Maryland. I also do a little bit of my own podcasting on the side. I've been recapping The Amazing Race 38. And I'm also newly into real estate. So if anybody is looking for a house in the DMV area, you know who to hit up. I'm your girl.
Hey, well, love it, love it. All right, well, we can jump right in here. I'm curious to know, the very first round of the game, you end up having an interesting choice in this majority or minority competition where you have to pick a majority answer to stay in the game. It's the third question, and Anthony says sweet or savory. You end up picking savory here. I'm curious, were you throwing this in the original competition here? And I'm wondering if that was a strategy of your own to kind of be a little under the radar at the start.
No, that was just me picking the wrong answer. I was thinking, especially like, looking at our cast and like the guys, I was just like, maybe they're not so much into sweets, especially as you get older. Sometimes, your tastes change. So I really thought, savory would be in the majority, but I mean, a part of me, I was thinking sweet because my answer would be sweet, but I was overthinking as to what I thought the rest of the population would vote.
Right. Yeah. And as we go into it, we're still getting these first impressions. You're coming off the second mini that you played. So, how are you changing and adjusting your initial strategy here, meeting all these new people and coming in with Rick, too?
Great question. So I learned a lot from my first mini. And one of the things that I learned is that it's really important to try to build these bonds and find common threads with people. So before we had started, when we're, just like getting warmed up on the Zoom, I'm talking to people, I'm asking them where they're from, I'm throwing out, connections like, oh, I've been there, or I used to live there, or I used to do that. And just trying to make myself more personable so that I don't seem like a threat and so that people can, get to know me. I made a joke with Davey. He was like crushing a sub sandwich. I was like, "Ooh, what's that? That looks good." So I thought that, leaning more into that social side would help carry me through the game. And then also speaking up more because in my first mini, I didn't advocate for myself very well in the round I went out, which was the trio game, which I'm sure we'll get to. So this time around, I had a completely different strategy. I said, this is the time to be aggressive and not be afraid to be aggressive as well.
Yeah. I really appreciate your perspective as a returner because as a returner myself, I feel like you have such an advantage kind of knowing the ins and outs of the game and the ebb and flow from round to round, especially how quick it can be. Was that an advantage coming into this time? Like you kind of felt like I'm in it. I know how quick it's going to be. I am able to form these relationships faster.
Yes, absolutely. My first time playing, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little nervous. I was a little intimidated. I was playing with Sandra, the Queen of Survivor. So I'm like, okay, I gotta watch what I say in any room around her, or I didn't know how cutthroat she was gonna be, or any of the players for that matter, because some of them had, played previous games. So I really felt like a newbie and a little bit like a fish out of water. Whereas this second time, I had a lot more confidence. Like you said, I know the ebb and the flow of the game. I understand that it goes quick. Those 5 minutes in the breakout rooms go so fast. So there's not a lot of time to waste.
Yeah. And how was it playing with Sandro?
Playing with Sandra was fun. I was so happy that I got to get to know her. She's so funny and just down to earth and personable. We see her on, television, and she's this reality TV. She's the queen, she's a beast at what she does, but she's so down to earth and easy to talk to. And she was really fun to chat with. We both made the jury, so I got to talk to her a little bit more there.
That's right. Yeah, I'm sure that was a great time too. And coming into this time, we still have more Fight or Flight returning players playing, and now you're playing with Kellen from Ghost Island and Rick from Destination X. Talk about some of those relationships and how you're feeling coming in with some of these players.
Well, coming in with Rick definitely made me feel a lot better because I said, okay, there's somebody I know that I can rely on and trust in this game. So I think it definitely was an advantage and it helped me. I hadn't met Kellen prior, but during the game, I got to know her. She was actually one of the people that I made sure to kind of make a connection with. And I believe she said like her husband was training to be a pilot. So I was like, oh, enjoy your flight benefits, girl. And I was telling her a little bit about my flight attendant experience. So I wanted to establish like a little bit of a rapport with her as well. Like, hey, we're the reality people. The others might be looking at us as big targets. Let's at least try to look out for each other throughout the game.
Yeah, and I feel like that went well. Kellen kind of gets sniped out, and then same with Rick too. But you're able to come back later, and we'll get to that. But with his first comp, you ended up getting saved by Esme here. Esme wins that first comp, saves yourself, Rick, and Sash in this spot. Unfortunately, in this first round, it is a vote where if you vote the eliminated player out, you get nominated in the next round. So talk to me about kind of the switch up here. You get saved for that first round. It seems like you weren't going to be in danger anyway. But in reality, you kind of needed the safety for the next round where you get nominated because you end up voting out Lillian in that first round. Now you're nominated along three others. You don't get a single vote this round. So how were you able to go through this unscathed?
So that one, look, when Esme saved me, I was over the moon. I was like, okay, I can relax. I'm not going to be like probably the first one out or anything like that. And then I messed up by voting Lillian. I picked her because I thought no one else was going to pick her. I really thought she was well liked and well received. I thought she had talked to enough people. It was really kind of taking a shot in the dark. And then after that is when I got nervous. And I was nervous, but at the same time, I knew that I at least had Rick, vouching for me, having my back in rooms that I'm not in. And I really just relied, like I said, on those quick connections I made even prior to the game. Like I said, just being friendly, being personable, being down to earth, not a threat, just here to have a good time. And I think that's what helped me, stay off of everyone's radar.
Yeah, I think that was a really great strategy because everyone that I saw in any room was like, "Oh, we love Ty. Ty's so nice. I just want to speak with Ty and play with her." I feel like that strategy worked really well for you. Is that more attributed to like who yourself you are as a person, or is that like more of a game standpoint that you kind of integrated as well?
It's definitely my personality. I'm a
Hmm.
very friendly person. I'm pretty easy to get along with. I can, I made friends everywhere I go, so I can just strike up a conversation with a stranger, So a lot of that is my personality, but I did make sure, like, purposely to try to talk to everyone, to try to have some sort of conversation or connection with every single person. I didn't quite do that, but I did it with the majority, and I think that's what really helped.
Yeah, no doubt. And we end up getting very quickly to this trio round, sort of a redemption moment for you. It took you out the last time. One of our production members aptly described this as kind of like your Boston Rob moment where you like, I got my people, we're locked in, you're not going anywhere, you're staying here with me. And you're able to lock down that trio with Michael and Ava in that
Yes.
round. And it ends up being like a pretty solid like, alliance for you moving forward, those two relationships from my perspective. So walk me through, your strategy change, having a little bit of redemption here, and then locking down that alliance.
Yes, exactly. I love how you coined that. That was my Boston Raw moment. That is when I realized, okay, I have to take control now because the first time around I didn't take control. And the first time I was in a room with two other people and I knew they were working together and I left to go talk with other people. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what put the bad taste in their mouth and gave them less confidence in me. So I said, there's no hesitation. You get in a room and you lock in and you keep them there. I kept Ava and Michael in that room with me. Like, no one is leaving. There's no room for them to try to change their mind or go anywhere else. So I took control, and I think that's what really saved me. And when other people would pop in, I'll say, "Oh, we have our three." good luck, but we're solid over here. And that trio, as you said, it really did help me throughout the game having an alliance with them, even though in the very next round, me and Ava voted out Michael, but I really liked Ava. I felt like she was loyal. I felt like she was going to be playing an honest game. So I was happy that I was in the room with her, and Michael seemed cool. He was fine with me too. So I said, look, I'm going to try ride out with these two people.
Right, and the great thing about Fight or Flight, always got to keep you on your toes. In the next round, it is a nomination where you guys do end up nominating Michael here, and then it ends up going to a public vote. Walk me through first the nomination of Michael. How did that happen?
So the nomination of Michael, when we went to the breakout rooms, I at that point I didn't realize that you could look and see who's in what room. So I couldn't find them at first. And then I went in the room that both of them were in, and I in my head was freaking out. I said they've already probably been talking about me because I'm the only one who's not there. So I got in there and I said, well, I'm staying put, okay? And I was really, even though we were all in front of each other, so I didn't have a lot of opportunity to, like strategize or, collude with another person in front of the other person's face. But I was hoping that, Ava, we would just, girl power, just look out for each other. And she ended up having the same train of thought. So I think a little bit of it was luck, that her and I were just kind of thinking similar, even though we didn't verbalize it directly to each other. And then, unfortunately, Michael was put up for the public vote with the others. And that round actually really stressed me out because Rick was up there too. Rick and a few other people, they volunteered within their trio to be nominated. That was not going to be my strategy. I was very much self preservation. I'm not volunteering for shit. Okay. They're going up for nomination. That's not happening with me because I want to stay. So I'm not going to be a sacrificial lamb. That's a different type of game, not the game that I was playing. And then I had to sit there and watch Rick shoot himself in the foot. So I'm like, this was supposed to be my safety net. This was supposed to be my undercover ally. And now he's gone. So I'm out here on my own pretty much. I mean, I think Ava's got my back and, some other people I'm cool with, but I really didn't have like really strongly defined alliances with anyone. So it helped kick me into gear to make sure that I'm solidifying those bonds and relationships with other people.
Absolutely, we certainly saw that. And the funny part of what you described too is I think that's a really great strategy to have in this game to always protect yourself. But it's funny that if you ended up being nominated, you might have been able to save Rick in that spot. But actuality, it ends up reversing back to you since he gets back into the game, and since he was already voted out, it really helped your case in the end too. So you give and take in both of those regards. So moving on, we get to this competition. It's a scavenger hunt for hunter or hunted. You end up going out in the first round here, trying to grab a phone charger. You just didn't have one nearby. What happened?
Okay, I did. This is what happened. And also in the first one, I was out in the first round too. Because I'm like, you know what? Forget the scavenger hunt. Like, I had it, but the charger had come out of the cord. So when I was off
Oh,
camera, I was standing like right here trying to connect it because I'm like, I don't know how technical they're gonna be. Like, that's not the full charger. And I realized I should have just stood over here with
and
it,
then
and you
put it.
guys would have
Yeah,
seen
yeah,
I had two pieces. So I just like wasted so much time. And, when you're rushing, my hands are shaking, and I'm like, why can't I get the piece in here? So that was that. I just was like, okay, whatever, move on to the next game because
right.
that one is not for me. I'm not quick enough.
Yeah, well, you end up dodging another nomination, and this vote ends up coming to a tie with Santi and Ava split here, and it ends up going to a wheel. Talk me through what was going through your head when this tie happened and the wheel happened, because potentially, you could get taken out in the spot, but you're able to dodge it. Walk me through what are you feeling in this moment?
Yeah, I do remember the tie between Santi and Ava. I definitely wanted to keep Ava safe. I didn't want her to go anywhere because, we had worked together earlier. So going to a wheel, that's worst case scenario. And I know on the revote, I revoted for Santi again because I wasn't gonna flip on Ava. I really wanted to keep her safe. So that was nerve wracking. And it's just one of those things in these games where at a certain point, your game might be left up to luck or chance, and it's just totally out of your hands. And all you can do is just wish for the best. And I'm just like praying it's not going to be me.
Yeah, and it ends up working out where now you survive. Ava's still in the game, and now the soulmate twist is going to be announced where we have three players coming back into the game, one of them being Rick. I actually spoke to Rick about this, where Rick ends up picking Adam first, but Adam is, already chosen in the same spot. So then he has to pivot and then choose you for the soulmate in this spot. How do you feel
Oh, so
knowing
I was
that?
his second choice. I was the
Yeah,
leftovers. Okay. I didn't know that.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, walk me through. You find out you're gonna be soulmate with Rick here. Gonna be your ally anyway, so always gonna protect him. But also second choice. What are you feeling?
So when in the game, in the moment when I got the notification that I was his soulmate, I'm thinking, well, first when he was just reintroduced to the game, I mean, I was happy, but I was shocked. I did not know that type of twist would be coming into this competition. But I was excited because I'm like, okay, I have my ally back. I have some protection. I have somebody who I know I can trust. So I was happy about it. I assumed at the time that I was probably his first choice. A part of me felt like, is that too obvious? Are people going to think that the Destination X people are together, or Rick's just automatically going to pick Ty because that's who he knows, who he's played with before? So that gave me a little bit of worry. So I was really just focused, like when that was announced on screen, just like keeping, a poker face, not changing my expression, acting like I didn't get any message. I don't know who has a soulmate or who doesn't. Was super shocked to see Rick coming in, but I was trying to play it cool. And also, it made me become more mindful of breakout rooms. So, in the first game I had played, there was a moment where we were like in a room and they're like, oh, can I talk to so and so in private? And I was like, I can't do that in front of people because they're all automatically going to think, like, okay, Ty and Rick are scheming. Maybe they're together, maybe they're soulmates. So, I knew from that point on, like I said, I had to keep a cool profile, low profile when it came to Rick.
Yeah, and you did a really exceptional job. Same with Rick at really hiding it. And it seemed like that you also mentioned in your final speech that no one really asked you like who your soulmate was, which I was very surprised by because it felt like you were in a really great spot. You would be a really solid soulmate pick. I felt like, and I think that with Rick coming back into the game too, even though it's obvious, it's definitely certainly a possibility. So I don't know, talk me through how did you keep it under wraps? No one seemed to guess at all. And from the sidelines, I was like, I feel like someone's got to at least ask and be curious about it. But no, it really felt like that you were able to slide under the radar the whole time.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's kind of a part of like kind of like my secret sauce as how I won this game is that I was able to fly under the radar. People didn't ask me a lot of questions. They didn't confront me. They didn't even seem like they had assumptions. And the way I was playing the game, like I said, I was working with, certain people and being very agreeable to, however they wanted the vote to go. I wasn't trying to be too dominating. I already had my Boston Rob moment. I said, okay, that's enough because timing is really important. When to make aggressive moves, when to fall back. So it really surprised me that no one asked. But soon after Rick became my soulmate and we did have a quick moment in a breakout room together, he told me that he had told, I think, Adam that we were soulmates. And I'm like, okay, I don't have enough time to be like, Rick, why'd you do that? But in my head, I'm like, liability. Okay. Like you've been working with him, but you don't know if he's in a pinch or in a bind. And he might sell us both out. And now, we're both in trouble. So I was pretty surprised that Rick told Adam that information, but I tried to see the positive in it that, Adam was someone that we were gonna, work with. I mean, I was kind of forced to from that point forward. And he could also be somebody who was looking out for both of us at that point.
Yeah. And minor spoilers for season 4, we see that someone spills the beans about soulmates and it goes really south. So very lucky for you that to not happen. And especially I think the fast pace of the game helps too, where you don't really have the time to truly think about, okay, am I really gonna sell him down the river here? And I think it ends up working out. You're totally unscathed through that. So well played there. We end up getting around to the jury phase of the game, and now we're kicking it into gear. This is around the point where you feel like your relationships are solid, your bonds are good. We're able to get 2 soulmates out back to back, and now that you end up surviving, walk me through that point of the game where now you able to get 4 people out in a row, suddenly down very quickly in this jury phase. How did you end up doing that? And now you're the only soulmate pair that survived.
Getting those two soulmate pairs out back to back, it was like a rush, and I felt like as a group we had a lot of good momentum going. Even though I did win an advantage, remember I had like the knowledge advantage, and I was able to
Yes.
ask a question like the detective or whatever it's called, and I forgot who I had inquired about, but they didn't have a soulmate, and I was like, okay, but even though I had that power, again, nobody asked me. Nobody asked me. They just let me play my game, unbothered. And I was like, this is great. This is making my job easier because if I was in that position, I was already thinking, like, if someone does ask me, depends on who's asking me. And what am I going to tell them? Am I going to tell them the truth? Am I going to make something up? The game's moving fast, so you don't even have a lot of time, even within your own self and within your own mind, to try to strategize and think of all these different contingencies and different ways it could play out. But getting those two soulmates out and knowing that Rick and I were the last two felt like quite an accomplishment. I was just like, yes, we are crushing it. And for whatever reason, they're not targeting us. So I did not want to draw any attention to myself, definitely no attention to Rick. I also had to be mindful not to be too vocal about protecting Rick. I just made sure that we're always throwing out rooms I'm in other names, just other, keep the conversation on somebody else.
Yeah, and suddenly you're in a really exceptional spot. It seems like, wow, it's very possible that Rick and Ty might run this to the end, which would be crazy, and actually did happen, which is wild. So in this spot, we now get to this Matt vote out, where you talk about this in your final speech too, that you're able to drive the Matt vote here and make sure that he's taken out of the game. You've kind of been throwing out his name for the past few rounds. Walk us through, how did you spearhead this Matt vote here?
So I believe it was around before that where Matt had thrown my name out. I think it was in a competition, and yeah, and I think he got me out. So I didn't like that. So I was like, okay, I have a personal reason, why I would want him out. It's not just, I'm just picking a name out of the sky, but also I was able to connect with other people and remind them that I think I said he has like 9 lives in this game. He was constantly going up for, nominations and eliminations and surviving them. He was also really strong at the comp. So having conversations in those room with people and planting that seed and having them see it from my perspective as well is really what I attribute to the Matt vote. That was a time, like I said, timing's everything. And I said, look, this guy is, for whatever reason, he's just not getting out of this game. So now is the time to take the shot at him because he is good at comps. And I'm gonna have to be more bold and more expressive with who I want out. And I felt like that was the right time, especially as the numbers were dwindling down. It was too much of a risk to keep Matt around. And Matt was also someone I hadn't really talked to that much. So I didn't have any conflicting feelings like, oh, they're a really good player, but I've helped them or I work with them and I don't want to betray them. Like I had no loyalties to Matt. I was like, Matt can go. Okay, are we all on the same page about it? And everybody pretty much was like, yeah, he can go.
Yeah, and that ended up being a really great move for you because now a lot of these players, they really trust you, and we get to a moment where now we have to vote for two players that are going to be the most trusted or going to receive this power, which is unknown, but it ends up being this duel or duel twist where you and Addie are receiving the most votes here and get spun on the wheel and chosen to be in this twist where you both have to decide unanimously on a name to go home. However, you got to be in different rooms. So walk me through what you're thinking in this moment. It's a really tough twist to navigate, but you end up getting through it and turning on Davey here, which ended up being another great addition to your resume.
So that number one, back up a little bit because when I was even, nominated, I think I had like 2 or 3 votes for like most trusted person. That was one of my highlights of the game. That really gave me the confirmation and the confidence that I am playing well and I am going to make it to the end. People are voting that they trust me. I was a little bit nervous because then we had to spin the wheel. And so you could see how many, whose name was up there. And I had voted for Rick. So I was like, oh gosh, I'm like, is Ava putting two and two together that she voted for me, but I didn't vote for her. I vote for Rick. Who else would vote for Rick out of us? It had to be me. So that made me a little bit nervous, but I was like, okay, I can't focus on that too much. We got to get this game going. That was definitely one of two of the most challenging votes that I had because I really like Davey. Davey had, I think he had saved me earlier in the blockchain competition. And I was like, thank you so much. I'm never going to forget it. I got your back. well, when it comes down to me or anybody else, I'm gonna have to choose me. And I didn't want to go head to head with Addie. I didn't really want to go head to head with anybody. Like I said, self-preservation. I don't want to take unnecessary risks. I want to stay in this game. I want to stay protected. I want to stay out of the nomination. So I my strategy for that one was pretty much just be agreeable to whatever Addie wants, okay? As long as it ain't Rick, you know. And I knew she wouldn't pick Ava because the three of us had been in a room and we were like, okay, us three girls, like let's try and take, like an all women. I think that was my idea. I was like, let's have an all women's, finale, like the finalists, like the top three, like all girls, and they like totally bought into it. So as long as Rick's name wasn't being floated out, Nick, Davy, whoever else, I forgot exactly how the name landed on Davy, but I remember just saying like, look, she wants to do Davy, I'll do anybody. I just want to be on the same page. And I think me reiterating to the people in my room to go communicate back to her that I just want to be on the same page with her, I think that also solidified her trust in me. That Ty's not trying to compete with me. Ty is being honest to her word that she does want to have an all-female, finale at the end. So even with that, that was more strategy, just showing her I'm not a threat. I'm not against you. Whatever you want, girl, I'll do it because I don't want one of us to go home.
Right. And honestly, that loyalty to Ava that you mentioned as well, sort of once again fortifying this trust in these bonds, ends up helping you in the very next round where Rick kind of throws out Ava and starts to build sort of this resume. He's like, Ava, you've won some comps. Like, I'm just like, I only won one. Come on, man. But you end up siding with Ava here, and Ava is going to get the other 3 votes, though. And Ava has to pick 2 other people to go in the competition with you. And probably the craziest moment of the game is that Ava decides to leave you and Rick both out of the competition, which I was floored by. I felt like in that spot you have to break up this pair. But it felt like that you were able to cultivate such a loyal bond with Ava that I feel like she really wanted to work with you overall in that spot. So walk me through, what do you feel in that moment? You dodge a competition here. Rick is also out of it. What are you feeling?
Look, at that point, that's when I knew. I was like, okay, I have it made because you're right. How are they leaving both of us together? But I think that's a credit to both of our games that we did not come off as a pair. We did not. No one suspected that we were soulmates. No one suspected that we were working together or that we would inherently have allegiance to each other, which of course we did. But it didn't show. We kept it under wraps, and really because I have played with Rick and I've been friends with him since the show, that we don't need to do a lot of discussion. I can just play the game and know, I'm not in breakout rooms with Rick, but I know Rick has my back and I'm gonna have his back and make sure his name's not being floated either. So that was another highlight of the game that Rick and I both made it unscathed. And I believe in that round, Addie had voted for Ava?
Yeah, all 3 of them
Yeah,
voted
they
for Ava.
did.
Yep,
So,
yep.
and see, that helped me because now Ava is feeling betrayed by Addie when we were supposed to have our girls trio. So when she had to pick, people to go against, she wasn't thinking about me. Nope, nope. She said, I'm gonna put up the person who, the people that voted against me. So I got to relax a little bit at that point, and I really was pulling for Ava to make it through.
Yeah, and that you did. Both of you go to the next round with Ava as well and kind of have a little bit of a buffer for you. But it actually ends up not mattering. You are going to end up winning this memory competition at the Final Four after some, unfortunate competition moments in the beginning. Talk me through. Now you're really, you turned up the heat, had some great moves for your resume, and now you're winning a comp. How'd you pull it off?
Yes. And in general, I'm good at memory games. I have a good memory, but it was late. I was tired. And I just told myself, I said, look, you have to focus. There were actually a few times where I had said, like, a letter that sounds similar, like B. And I think Anthony thought I said C, and he had, like, picked a different one. But I was like, okay, it's okay. Let me just talk a little clearer and focus and make sure that I lock it in. I think Rick and I were kind of like, like one-on-one with each other. And I just knew that I had to focus and bring it home because I was like, I need safety. These numbers are getting way too low. And as the game gets smaller, especially when you have multiple allegiances with people, that's when it gets more complicated. And I was like, I don't want to be in that spot. So I was like, let me just make sure I'm safe. And that way, the people that are up for nomination, they're the ones that are more passionate about driving the votes, in whatever direction. So it was also a highlight for me too, winning that memory game, especially towards the end. Like I said, when we're just like tired and it's memory too, so it's something that's kind of difficult to focus on, especially when it's getting late.
Right, and well played there. Unfortunately, Ava does go out at the final four here. You have to turn on her to make it through. And now you end up getting to the final three, where it seems like you're in a really exceptional position. All you need is for Nick not to win this final competition. However, the twist ends up being a vote to save. So instead of, let's say, Rick or yourself winning, now you have to be in a spot where most likely you are going to go into this final competition. Now, Nick is going to end up voting for Rick to save here in this spot instead of yourself. So Rick ends up advancing to the final two. Now you have to go into a competition with Nick, this number competition. Talk to me about, let's say, you got one more competition, then you're in the final two. You're so close. What are you thinking in this moment?
I was just thinking you have to win. You came this far, and I felt like I had played so well throughout the whole competition. I was like, there's no way you're gonna lose it at the end, Ty. Like, and I remember the first couple rounds, like with the numbers and stuff, because I had like a certain strategy, and then I was like, I'm looking at my numbers, and I was like, okay, well, I have to do this one. I was like, maybe I picked too many high numbers in the beginning. And then that ended up being a tie too. But it really just shows like how competitive these games are. They are not easy, simple games. And especially, like I said, this group of people that we have was really phenomenal. Everybody was really, really passionate about the game and competitive, and we're really good at these competitions. So it wasn't easy. And, we had to go to a tiebreaker from there. And if anything, it really just made me, just like appreciate my journey even more, that I had to really fight for it. Like, pulling out that win with that memory competition, being tired as hell, and then going down to, this final round against Nick, which was really tricky, us tying, and then having to face off a second time. So even just being in that position, that final competition with just Nick at that time, I felt like I said, I came too far and I've played too well. And I know I have jury votes already. At that point, I was starting to take some notes for my speech. I was off camera because I was like, I know I'll win. I know I'll get the jury votes. I can't squander it now. I can't mess up now.
Right, and I got to give you some credit because that was probably the wildest iteration of that number comp I've ever seen. I've done a lot of, game theory and watching it. It's a fight or flight staple, of course, and you're right. It went to a tie here, and probably one of the craziest moment in fight or flight history, in my opinion, is that your final question, this tiebreaker question, comes down to how many seconds into this clip show video that you watched earlier in the night did Gabby say, "Who's here? I left RAR." Unbelievable quote, and it comes down. This is a deciding question that wins the game. It's what are you feeling in this moment? Because it's a funny question, but now it's deciding your fate in the game.
It was a guess, definitely, because that round, I went out super early in that one too. I think I went out when there was like a question when it was like what was in the background or something, and I was like, oh, I didn't even look at that. So I just knew that, it had to be, pretty well in, and we're talking about seconds, so maybe like a higher number. But that was something where I was just like, look, I'm going to take a guess. I'm going to try and take the best educated guess that I can. And hopefully I'm closer than him. But that's really when I felt like I wasn't in control of my game anymore, because it felt more like chance. I mean, who remembers down to the seconds, and you're right. It's such a wild question. And for that to determine everything, and knowing that like Rick, my opponent, is sitting there, and I was wanted to face off against him so badly. So that was definitely, I was feeling like a lot of pressure there. I was like, oh my gosh, I hope I don't blow it now.
Yeah. And well, you pull it out. Now you get to the final two with Rick, and I assume that you're probably thinking you have a really great shot to win at this point. You coming out, pretty hot in your opening statement. You have some really great points touching on your resume, moments of, you spearheaded the Matt vote. You really got that Davey blindside going. Had some really great bonds that you've forged. But I think you really topped it off by the narrative that you set in the speech, talking about that, hey, Rick, he saw me down the river in Destination X. Let the queen have a turn. Come on, guys. And I think a lot of everyone, smiled and laughed when you said that in your opening speech. I think that was a really great way to add some humor in there as well. So Walk me through sort of that moment. I felt like you really handled that well. Is that a tribute to some of your, career, personal life, really good at speaking?
Some of it, I mean, so it's just me. Like I said, I'm a very personal person. I've also been an attorney my entire career, and I started off as a prosecutor. So in court every day, in front of people, arguing, talking, and a lot of trials is actually storytelling. You have to tell the story, especially to a jury, of what happened, beginning, middle, and end, and have them believe you and your side of the case. So I think some of it is my training from my profession, but it's also just my personality. I know how to relate to people. That's also how you win juries over, being a little funny, being relatable, finding these threads that they can, kind of identify with. So throwing that out there, I knew that Rick is a great sport and, he wasn't going to take it any type of way. Like I said, him and I are friends, but, I'm like, look, he already won way more money than this prize money. So let me have a turn. And it really did feel like my personal redemption, because Rick did sell me out on Destination X, and that's why this win in this game in particular meant even more to me, and it was even more fun for me to win because I was like, ooh, now I beat Rick at something.
Yeah, and that you did. You end up winning by a 7-2 vote here, pretty clear cut. And you get your redemption, and it's a redemption in multiple facets of beating Rick, and then also coming back and winning Fight or Flight. So,
Yeah.
anything else from your perspective that I missed, or any like final thoughts to cultivate your game together here?
So I want to talk a little bit about Miss Chloe K. Chloe K was so chaotic. That vote where it was the keep or swap was stressful because I'm like, okay, this could be our vote to get her out. I liked her. I thought she was fun and funny and all these other things, but unpredictable, right? Unpredictable, that's going to be a liability. So I'm like, if this is our shot just to get her out, and then all the drama started coming out, and I wasn't in that room. So I had no idea whatever that conversation was with her and Davy, but I ended up in a room with her later and she was still like going off about it. And I said, okay, this is also an emotional player. An emotional player can also be a liability because what if I'm in a position where, I have to make some kind of choices against her and now she's in her feelings against me? I haven't really been catching no votes this whole time. So I was like, I can't have that. So that one, and I remember with my strategy, I did, like ask her and I was getting her to talk and she was saying that, she was inclined to keep, she was going to keep the votes. And I'm analyzing her, I'm studying her body language, and I feel like she's being honest. And I asked her reasons why, and she was elaborating. And I said, okay, she has these reasons kind of from like a moral kind of standpoint, like, I'm just going to keep it. If I earn the votes to go, I'm just going to go. And then I ran back in another room and I told him, I said, look, Chloe K said she's going to keep. So let's just do Chloe K. And I think she was against Matt, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I was like, I mean, in my book, it was kind of a win-win either way because I was fine with Matt going home, but that was another one that was very tricky. And also the Ava vote out. That one hurt me. Davy and Ava were the two votes that were the hardest for me because I did like them. I did like working with them. And I felt really bad personally with Ava because I know she really did believe in me about taking her to the end. And there was a moment where I thought, maybe I will take Ava to the end. Maybe I'll blindside Rick and I'll vote him out like he did on Destination X with me. Maybe I'll get him a taste of his own medicine. But it's just not the same as beating a person. I said, no, I want to stand against him, go off 1-1, and I want to earn it. I don't want to just like vote him off because honestly, I felt like it would be easier just to convince other people to vote against Rick. Like I could have spun that narrative and got people to vote out Rick if I wanted to. But I said, no, I want to go to the end with him and I want to beat him fair and square. So I was so proud of myself that number one, I was so happy I had this opportunity to redeem myself with Fight or Flight and happy that I improved. I feel like every time I play these online reality games, I'm getting better. I'm learning certain skills. I'm learning from my own mistakes. I'm learning from other players and it's just improving me. So after playing this one, after winning, especially winning against Rick, I also think it's just super cool that, the two Destination X contestants were the two finalists. That was an accomplishment for both of us. But it's gotten me even more fired up to play another reality show game. So I'm throwing my hat in the ring for Big Brother, for Traders, Amazing Race. And I also would really like to do Dancing with the Stars just because I'm a dancer and I feel like it would be fun to tap into those skills again. But yeah, it gave me a lot of confidence. I feel like now I'm on a roll. I'm unstoppable.
Yeah, well, keep on rolling, Ty, because I'm so excited to see whatever you do next. As a proud member of Team Ty myself, such a pleasure to watch and see you dominate this game and come back and win. So, thanks again so much for your time. Very much well played. Anything that you want to have people check out?
Yeah, you can keep in touch with me on my social media. My Instagram is at my first name, Ty, Tai underscore my last name, Lowry, Lowry underscore. Same handle for TikTok. And also my YouTube channel where I post my podcasts and some other fun bits and some interviews as well. So my YouTube is Ty underscore Lowry.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much again, Ty. This has been Nathan. You can follow me on Instagram at NathanHWLL. And for Fight or Flight, you can follow us on YouTube, Twitch, Patreon, TikTok, all of those spaces. Thank you so much. Have a great night.